You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Well, welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM, KKNW, the Saturday, October 29th show, Halloween weekend. I'm committed to providing you knowledge needed to be successful in every area regarding your financing. Knowledge is power, and that's what you'll receive from listening to the show today. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, Randy Bannecker with Bannecker Public Affairs talking about housing, affordability, supply. Randy, thank you so much for coming back in studio.
Thanks so much for having me.
And a little bit about Randy. Randy's president of Bannecker Public Affairs. Randy has been engaged in our region's critical issues for more than 20 years. He has extensive experience advocating complex, highly visible, and controversial land use and public policy initiatives. Randy is a leader in the region's business community and has a strong record of community service, which includes co-chair Policy Committee of Greater Seattle Chamber of Commerce, President Villa Academy Boards of Trustees, past chair Bellevue Chamber of Commerce, past president Seattle City Club. And prior to former Bannecker Public Affairs, Randy held government affairs positions at Washington Natural Gas, Puget Sound Energy, and Rocky Company, now Hill and Knowlton. So excited about the conversation. Talk a little bit about the housing affordability and supply, because it really is a hot topic right now with everything that's happening in our real estate market. So Randy, you're engaged in public affairs and government relationships work on in the region, representing groups like Seattle King County of Realtors and other organizations and businesses trying to do something with government to have government not do something to them. So what is the major issue that you're seeing right now, Randy?
Well, housing has really emerged as a tremendous public policy issue. And whereas before I think we've had discussions around market rate housing, its affordability, it's really the public debate, the debate among government circles, really at every level of government, has included housing affordability, particularly for people who are earning less than median income, as well as homeless issues. Now, our challenge has been that the narrative from the government has been focused more on housing subsidy programs and increased regulations, less on what we view as the underlying problem that housing growth hasn't kept pace with job growth. And that's led to the circumstances you described before the break,
yes,
which is very little supply and a very competitive marketplace for people out on the market trying to buy.
So, Randy, there's been a great deal of debate over the homeless issue in the city of Seattle. And how do you see playing out? How do you see that playing out? And what are some of the key considerations that my listeners should be aware of?
Sure. It's a great question. You'll recall that the Seattle City Council was pursuing a strategy that would essentially make camping in public places legal.
Yes.
Places like rights-of-way, sidewalks, unimproved area of parks, even school property potentially. And there was tremendous frustration expressed by the citizens of Seattle, just average people who hadn't been engaged in outreach to the city council before and got engaged. Now, they weren't at all hostile to the fact that there are folks out on the street that need help.
Yep.
But they were frustrated that the council's solution was less than a Band-Aid, really, and could exacerbate the problem and compromise neighborhood quality and safety.
Sure. So, Randy, obviously housing has a big element of the homeless issue. And are the cities in our region headed in the right direction on affordable housing?
Well, there have been a lot of positive steps. I think for instance, specifically to the homeless issue, the Seattle City Council is poised in the right direction. They're adopting a strategy defined by a national consultant, and they're looking at ways to house these people quickly and get services to them. That's important.
Yes.
But we also have to be mindful that the underlying challenge is that if we don't balance supply and demand, we are pushing middle-income earners off out of the opportunity to purchase. And so those folks are having to travel farther and farther from where they live to qualify for a mortgage. And we have to be careful that when we pursue programs that would create affordable housing or low-income housing, that those subsidies are not purely funded by real estate excise taxes or by certain fees that are associated with the transaction, because as you know, that further compromises that middle-income earner who is struggling to get into their first house or condo. And we want to make sure that we've got that entry-level ownership housing opportunity well in place. Yeah,
and it's a challenging conversation and to find a solution around that. So, Randy, what role do alternative housing types like mother-in-law units or backyard cottages play in housing affordability?
So, I think they have been really underestimated in their value because these units bring a great deal to the table. They offer below market rents for those folks who are looking to rent a space. They offer an income stream to the owner, creating the opportunity for that owner maybe to stay in that house longer if they're empty nesters.
Yeah.
And establishing greater affordability, as you know, if you can demonstrate an income stream that a mortgage lender will recognize that could help you get into a house. And they don't create significant impacts on the look and feel of the neighborhood. So they give us some immediate housing supply without fundamentally changing how we perceive our neighborhoods.
Okay. So, Randy, more and more homeowners are renting out a room or maybe the mother-in-law unit through platforms like Airbnb and Homeaway. Aren't these units taking a longer-term rentals off the market? And isn't this making it more challenging with the adding to the affordability challenge that we're having?
Well, that is very much the criticism, but I think it misses the mark a little bit. Like longer-term rentals of the mother-in-law units, these short-term rentals offer homeowners great opportunities to generate income from their home. And it gives them the homeowner the opportunity to choose exactly the amount of time, the number of days they're willing to rent the unit. So I think that contrary to taking units off the long-term rental market, I think it brings more units into the rental pool because the platform is so user-friendly, both for the homeowner and for the user. The other point I'd make is that the number of units out there right now is pretty small.
Sure.
That'll grow, but it's not statistically significant at this point. And, we are facing such a tremendous surge in job growth. We just can't house these folks.
Yeah. And
it piles on to an already difficult affordability and transportation challenge that our region is facing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know too with the Airbnb, and I don't know about the Homeaway, you really have to be an owner-occupied property in order to participate that. So it's, in rental properties, they can't do that, correct?
That's
to go into that platform.
That is up for debate. So we're going to see how that plays out.
Okay.
And I would say...
So that is not a law that's in place right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And again, what the market is doing, what owners of multifamily units are doing, they are letting the market test the viability of that.
Okay.
And we will see is that a niche that is somewhere between a long-term lease and a hotel room.
Yes.
Is there a niche there that makes sense? Really good sense, both for that owner, but also for the user and just for the region.
Of course. So what's going on to make some real roads in housing?
Well, again, as we discussed earlier, if you think of housing as a continuum, as kind of a ladder, and you begin, you get your first rental when you're out of college or when you're in college, and you work up the ladder to make your first purchase, and you work yourself on up as you improve in the housing stock that you get. I'm worried we're losing those middle rungs. I'm worried we're losing the entry level or the moderate move up level, and that we have not been serious about, again, balancing that market rate supply with demand and leaving almost no room in the middle of that ladder for those middle income folks. One of the things that we need to think about to solve that is taking advantage of significant increased housing densities around transit stations, in our urban villages, and in key multifamily zones. Places where density is appropriate, and places where we can do multifamily ownership, condo development, and do it in a way that gives people access to jobs and a community.
So somebody might be listening, just thinking, there's all these cranes, new projects that are going on out there. How could we be having still a housing supply issue? Right.
I think the official bird of our region is the crane, right? Because that's all you see. And so I think the answer is it's good, but we need to be bigger and bolder. We just ran some numbers looking at just 11 months in 2015. There were 23,600 building permits issued in the Tri-County region, King, Pearson, Snohomish. But there were nearly 100,000 people from out of state who got new driver's licenses.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we're adding workers 4 times as fast as we're adding housing, and that is... So
it's a little deceiving seeing the cranes out there not taking consideration the population growth that we have.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And we don't want to shut down job growth.
Definitely not.
We want to facilitate it.
Yeah, so we got to find a space there to bring everything together. So I've got just a couple minutes, Randy, here with you, and I want you to kind of leave with your best forward in what you're doing, or what we can do to really help in making progress here.
So I would say that people need to get engaged at the community level and be open to the good things that growth can bring. And I would just ask you and your listeners to think about some of the transformations that we've seen through commercial and residential development in South Lake Union, in downtown Bellevue, downtown Kirkland. Let's watch Redmond as the Overlake Village develops. Let's watch Issaquah as their downtown plan develops. These are places that are becoming more interesting to live in and more enjoyable because there are more people there, more offerings.
Yes.
Restaurants, shops, things like that. And so let's think more about that than be worried about the change that is unknown.
Wonderful. Great advice, Randy. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I, want to give a shout out on Mike here because I have a lot of realtors that come in for my Power Hour Lunch and Learns, and the information that you bring to them and helping our realtors get educated on what's going on so they can share that with their buyers and sellers. So just really appreciate you.
Thanks very much.
Coming up next on the Money Hour, reinvesting in your commercial property. John Viacava with Real Living Northwest Realtors right here at 1150 AM KKNW after the short break.